The 1992 movie Candyman still remains an influential piece of horror cinema. Now, the highly anticipated sequel in the franchise is almost here. For the fans who have been waiting patiently, here's everything we know so far. Candyman has seen quite a bit of reshuffling over the last year. Universal originally planned for the horror sequel to come out in June 2020, but by April of that year, the studio pushed it back in the schedule. The studio set a new, aspirational release date for September of that year, but it had to switch dates several more times before it landed at its current date of August 27th, 2021. It looks like Candyman will stick with that date, but we can never be too sure with these things. As far as we know, Candyman will come out exclusively in theaters upon its initial release. A ton of studios have begun experimenting with dual theater and streaming service release strategies. Still, it looks like Universal wants people to have the chance to see the newest horror flick on the big screen, at least initially. There's no official word yet regarding when or where the slasher flick will be available to view at home, but it's likely to follow the standard progression from theaters to pay-per-view video on demand to subscription streaming. So don't expect to watch it from your home until it's concluded the standard theatrical run. Some films are delayed for creative reasons. Nothing makes a fan base nervous like a round of reshoots, and if they're extensive enough, they can definitely inspire a little schedule shuffling. Fortunately, that wasn't the case with Candyman. The original June 2020 release was rendered unworkable by the budding pandemic. Universal clearly didn't want to drop a highly anticipated tentpole film on a country full of empty theaters, so the first delay came down just as the pandemic was picking up speed, pushing Candyman back an overly optimistic 5 months to September. The next delay, sadly, was also a result of the ongoing pandemic. The pandemic dragged on into 2021 and continues to drag on in many places around the world. Theaters around the world were still shuttered as of 2021, so instead of kicking the film to video on demand, Universal pushed the release date again and again, eventually landing on August 27th. With the domestic vaccine rollout significantly stemming the tide of the pandemic and lockdown orders lifting just about everywhere in the US, it now seems almost certain that the August release date will hold. Unless something totally unforeseen happens between now and then, expect Candyman to roll into a theater near you alongside the dog days of summer. Fans of the original Candyman movies can expect to see a few familiar faces among the cast. Most notably, Tony Todd reprises his role as the title slasher. The Candyman himself is a terrifying spirit who visits anyone who dares to say his name 5 times while looking into a mirror. With a rusty hook as a hand and a propensity for bees, he's one of the scariest horror movie monsters to grace the big screen. Another original actor to return includes Vanessa Estelle Williams, who plays Anne Marie McCoy in both movies. You may remember her from the 1992 film as Anthony's mother, who spoke with a college student about the urban legend surrounding the monster within Chicago's Cabrini Green community. Anthony is all grown up for the follow-up, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II portrays him this time around. He's now a visual artist living in the newly gentrified area of town where he explores the myth of Candyman to find inspiration for his art. The impressive cast for the upcoming horror flick also includes such talented actors as Tiana Paris from WandaVision, Coleman Domingo from Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, and Nathan Lloyd Stewart-Jarrett from Mope. Given that 2021's Candyman doesn't have a subtitle or any numbers in the title, it might be easy for audiences to assume it's a remake of the original. Rest assured, it's a sequel that picks up several decades after the first film's events. The two movies even share a connection by making the little boy Candyman kidnapped the protagonist of this follow-up. As for the 2021 film, the plot follows Anthony, played by Abdul-Mateen II, as he seeks to find a way to rejuvenate his art career. One day, he meets with an older member of the community who was once a resident of the Cabrini Green projects. This person tells him the haunting story of Candyman, which Anthony then uses as inspiration for his paintings. However, the deeper he goes into exploring the concept of Candyman, the more he'll unleash a horrific wave of murders. The director of the 2021 film, Nia DaCosta, appeared in a video interview in which she discussed her approach to Candyman in depth. The director is clearly a kindred spirit with her latest collaborator, Jordan Peele. DaCosta confirms that she shares Peele's firmly held belief that horror is a perfect vehicle for the exploration of social issues like racial and class inequities. She pointed out in the interview that the creation of monsters is hardly the sole province of genre fiction. DaCosta says, "We create monsters of men all the time. People are murdered and they become either saints or they are vilified. So throughout the last year and a half, it was always coming back to that truth. Horror is a really effective tool when it comes to telling stories about things that impact us on a social level. The very function of it is to make you uncomfortable, and I think if that discomfort is attached to explorations of race or gender, you have to then reconcile your feelings about race and gender. Given the vocal sentiments of DaCosta and horror maestro Jordan Peele, expect a healthy serving of the latter's signature blend of frights and social commentary to be on abundant display. Candyman is one horror film that will leave you thinking twice before you stare too long at a mirror and say,
Candyman.
Don't say that.
We already know that Candyman 2021 has been pulled forward into the modern day. As a result, we can expect the film to grapple with contemporary issues of anti-Black racism in America, using the popular discourse of the time. Peele has also described this film as a spiritual sequel to the original Candyman, one that will likely capture the mood of the original better than any of its less lauded direct sequels. For a hint at how Peele's new vision might look, we turn to Universal's extensive synopsis of the forthcoming film. Universal revealed, "For as long as residents can remember, the housing projects of Chicago's Cabrini Green neighborhood were terrorized by a word-of-mouth ghost story about a supernatural killer with a hook for a hand, easily summoned by those daring to repeat his name 5 times into a mirror. In present day, a decade after the last of the Cabrini Towers were torn down, visual artist Anthony McCoy and his girlfriend, gallery director Brianna Cartwright, move into a luxury loft condo in Cabrini, now gentrified beyond recognition and inhabited by upwardly mobile millennials." Universal further explained, saying, "With Anthony's painting career on the brink of stalling, a chance encounter with a Cabrini Green old-timer exposes Anthony to the tragically horrific nature of the true story behind Candyman. Anxious to maintain his status in the Chicago art world, Anthony begins to explore these macabre details in his studio as fresh grist for paintings, unknowingly opening a door to a complex past that unravels his own sanity and unleashes a terrifying wave of violence that puts him on a collision course with destiny." It's worth noting that though the Cabrini Green neighborhood still exists, the real-life Cabrini Green row house projects were torn down in 2011. The Cabrini Green housing projects were infamous and provided an iconic backdrop to the original 1992 Candyman. Just how the new film will grapple with the changing face of the neighborhood is unknown, but count on Jordan Peele to find an interesting way to weave the complex social fabric of present-day Chicago into aesthetic or plot devices to the thesis of this film. After over a year of delays, there better be a trailer. Fortunately, Universal has released not just one, but 2 full-length trailers to keep viewers excited about the film over the course of the excruciating wait. Both trailers, taken in tandem, tease a terrifying and relevant film marked by immaculate acting, direction, and cinematography. The first trailer, released back in February 2020 when that original June release date still seemed like a possibility, shows off quite a bit of the 2 killer leads, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II and Tiana Paris. We also get a glimpse of a bunch of teenagers lined up in what looks like a school bathroom summoning the titular Candyman while standing in front of a mirror. You know, like you're supposed to do it. Minor spoiler alert, it doesn't end well for the teens. The second trailer, which only dropped on June 23, 2021, takes an even creepier approach. It opens with a bit of animated shadow puppetry to accompany a voiceover explaining the Candyman mythology and hinting at the danger that will be summoned in the film. Interestingly, the plot of the original Candyman film seems to serve as the lore underpinning the contemporary story. The voiceover sets up the razor blades in the candy scenario from the earlier film as quick intercuts of the animated shadow puppets continue to intrude to eerie effect. For the fans that want to see how these things are all pulled together and the ones who just want a few good scares, Candyman is almost here. We just have to make our way into the theaters for the experience.
Say his name.
Looks like we're going to finally find out what happens when they do in theaters on August 27th. Check out one of our newest videos right here, plus even more Looper videos about upcoming movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.